Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Great.
Good.
So good to be here.
All right, let's start with a really simple question here about the state of marketing. When we talked earlier, both of you talked about rising above the social feed. Sure. Okay. So,
Aren't we all trying to do that every day?
Exactly.
Get off of our social media. You know, I think that what we've learned as social media has grown and it's become a key tool of our marketing toolbox is that it can do a really amazing job, but it can't do everything. There's some brand building that still needs to be outside of the scrolling through. And so what we've done at Health-Ade is try to find other ways to deepen the connection with the brand. In some marketing models and in some years, all we could do is push out a social media message. But you know, there's things like we've created a partnership with the Dodgers, for example. We are the official kombucha at Dodger Stadium. And that says something to a Dodger fan in a way that looking at our branded message or another influencer post on Instagram really just can't.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, social feeds are hugely important. It's like a massive media channel. And at the same time, they're being inundated, right? You have like a bunch of forces. You have both younger people starting to reevaluate their relationship with these platforms. You have questions on whether platforms like TikTok will or will not exist moving into the future. And with generative AI, you also have a huge volume of bots and content that's not created. And so you're fighting an uphill battle trying to exist exclusively in those platforms. By the way, we're social animals.
I want to come back to AI, but you also used the phrase before, Joey, of stopping the phone. Like, is that, what does that mean when you're marketing something and you get to stop the phone?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually capturing someone's attention, even for a moment, right? Theoretically, it's something that you have done that is connecting with somebody, that is having a moment. But at the same time, like when you're talking about building real life experiences and engaging someone in the world, like it's a lot easier to do that when your phone's in your pocket. And so those moments where you're able to put it down, I think, have an outsized impact.
Charlotte, in your space, you can do things like 1,000 cans at an event, you're giving away drinks, or the phone, the scroll, social events. So could you talk about how you make those decisions?
You know, for us, I think it's about a portfolio of reach opportunities because, as you said, people are putting away their phones or they're looking to interact in your brand in a different way. And there's still a great deal of storytelling we need to do. So we are running linear TV this year. And I feel like as a marketer, I have one foot in the past and one foot in the future. We're using machine learning and performance marketing tools that are the latest and greatest to do some of those quick burn social media ads where we're giving you all the attributes, your lower funnel, you're ready to click through, things like that. But then we're also kind of stepping out and saying, okay, what can we do that breaks through in a different way? For example, we did a Wheel of Fortune partnership. It is the most watched show in linear
That's
TV,
crazy.
which is crazy. And you know, you would think that, oh, it's not our target market. We're kombucha. We do skew a little bit younger. But there's intergenerational watching. And there are certain things you do that just have that badge value that means so much more to a consumer than yet another branded ad or, to be frank, an influencer post that they're starting to see right through.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about celebrities versus influencers and how you're using them today.
I mean, I think, you know, there's a huge gradient, right? Like for a long time, it was like micro influencers and nano influencers and maybe pico. I don't know how low we're going on the Planck scale of influencers, but I think, you know, it plays a factor in terms of awareness, in sort of captured affinity and the halo that you can get if it's someone that means something to you personally and that they're sort of ascribing their name to it. But at the same time, right, speaking about like the TikTok ban, when that was happening, there was a bunch of influencers going on in like the last moments before they thought it was going away, being like, yeah, no, I was bullshitting the whole time. Like I was super not using that eyeliner or using this product or that product. And I think that question of like what is real, because you have a generation of people who grew up on these platforms, they understand that people are out there trying to get a bag at the same time.
Yeah.
Cheryl, can you talk about Olivia Rodrigo? You did something really interesting with her.
Yeah, I do. But I do want to speak a little bit about influencer marketing in general, because I think what's fascinating is we're using it as a tool to be really authentic and hear from like the everyday person. And then we're also using it to create badge value. And so it's not a one size fits all. And the word influencer is like too big of a word nowadays to mean anything. And so you've kind of got to do it all. The Olivia Rodrigo partnership was really interesting, and it wasn't even really a partnership. This was something that happened in December of 23, and we are distributed at Air One, the famous Air One. What's so interesting is they don't have more than 20 stores in the country. Right. So truly, being at Air One is almost in and of itself an influencer partnership, because you're trying to get that badge value of being at this, amazing, clout badge value type of a place. And they have their famous smoothies, of course. And Olivia Rodrigo was launching her Guts album. And so she wanted to have a good for your gut smoothie. And because we have a relationship with Air One, they basically said, pick your Health-Ade flavor, and that will be an ingredient in your smoothie. So it was an amazing win for us. And the magic there was being able to work with Olivia Rodrigo, have amazing content with her in it for a fraction of the price of a typical Olivia Rodrigo collab, and then pitch it to everyone and their mother to amplify the voice. And that's become the name of the game for influencer marketing is, yes, you're paying the fee to the influencer, the creator, but the real efficiency there is to amplify that beyond and above. And so you're pitching that to press, you're putting paid media behind it, so that it's now become an amazing piece of content that shares your story and not just to that audience of the influencer.
Yeah, I think there's a blurry line too, right? Like historically, if you use some like A-list celebrity in a commercial, the understanding was that they were a spokesperson, right? Like
right.
They were a face to convey a line or something in a commercial. I think where it starts to get blurry is where you go into these influencers who are sort of conveying like, use this product like I use it, and that question of like what is true and real and all of that starts to get blurry and can potentially tarnish.
Well, speaking of,
yeah.
Maybe this is a segue into AI. Let's start with you, Joey. What impacts are you seeing with AI in your business?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's huge impacts in lots of different ways, not necessarily like all negative, but is dramatic changes, right? I think a lot of professional service work is being pushed to be faster and more efficient in any ways possible. I think there are a lot of assumptions that have been made in that process, and people have got it right and got it wrong in different ways, where the assumption is, like some of the major consultancies have said that they're not hiring analysts anymore, sort of the more junior roles, but they're not filling back up the managers and partners and things like that. And so I think some of that now has played out where you can do a lot more, but you still sort of need that human in the loop in the process to be able to feed these systems.
I think you had told me the thing that with Gary Kasparov, the analogy you made.
Yeah, Gary Kasparov, when he lost to Deep Blue in like 1999, he went through like a 2-year sadness of being like, well, I'll never play chess again. The game is ruined for me. But then at some point he was like, well, they know all the chess moves ever played in any tournament ever, and I don't. And so he created advanced chess where you could have any number of humans, any number of AIs, or a combination of both. And they called the combination of both centaurs, and centaurs were always winning the tournaments. And I think that's an example where you're sort of leveraging multiple types of intelligence. I think Kevin Kelly talked a lot about that as well in his book, The Inevitables, of bringing different intelligences together to solve a problem. This is accretive, not replacing necessarily.
Well,
that's
what about
exactly how it's come to life at Health-Ade as well. So, it's not that AI is replacing anybody, but it's simply doing a deeper level of work than what we were ever able to do in a small, lean and mighty team. We're able to look at big data sets and understand them, or optimize, learnings and flows, email flows, or user experiences, because of what AI is being able to tell us and those overlays. And so it's that one-to-one. I love the centaur analogy.
Yeah.
And what about predictive AI if you are the advertiser? Are you seeing a demand for that?
You go.
I mean, I think, there's like an interesting dynamic, I think, happening in advertising overall, right? You had the performance marketing wave that sort of started in a lot of ways on the back of what Spotify had done with sort of data hacking, growth hacking, all of these things. The performance marketing question is like, it is highly effective. It is a thing that you want to be using. But if you build your entire company and brand and marketing strategy off of performance marketing, I don't think you're building a lot of equity overall. You have to have sort of a broader set in the same way that like where everyone sort of initially looks for that silver bullet, like, great, generative AI exists. I'm going to build my whole company on this and need no humans ever again. That hasn't played out. Same with performance marketing and predictive marketing.
Charlotte, let's talk about, you're doing an activation on Wheel of Fortune. Not a lot of Gen Z there. But Gen Z's a little bit the tail that's wagging the dog.
Absolutely. Can
you talk about how this has impacted what you're doing?
Yeah, it's fascinating. And, I think we all have a love-hate relationship with Gen Z. I think we joked about how we had to ditch our skinny jeans overnight because they said we weren't fashionable anymore. We're so chuggy. And so, there's that tension point they're putting on society with the way that they are calling us out or trend setting. And what we found in the actual consumer research is that Gen Z is not the hugest buying power out there, right? They're not the most wealthy or large generation yet. It's still the bulk of your spending is going to be with millennials and boomer generation or Gen X. And so
Gen X is used to being forgotten.
This is true. But Gen Z is really inspiring the others. And so they are, I think, inspiring change for good. Even if I think about the way that our consumer experience, our responses, even 5 years ago, we could get away with the formula response, hey, we don't disclose that, and it was that templatized answer. With the advent of AI and Gen Z's kind of demand, rightfully so, for transparency, you can't get away with that anymore. Yeah. First of all, it's easy as it ever could be to write something in natural language and say, hey, AI, write this in a way that would be nice to understand, so I don't need to just copy paste anymore. And then Gen Z's demanding the facts. And so we've gone through and had to completely rewrite what we were willing to share previously. And then we're using them as our inspirational design target. It's a concept I've loved forever in my marketing career of who do I want to delight that will then go and be my marketer for us. And so Gen Z is that person, but doing it in a very approachable way so they can inspire our creative, but not be the only media target out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on who you talk to. Gen Z is either illiterate or the greatest generation of all time. I think what you've learned over the past few years, and New York Times had a great piece about this of maybe a few months ago, 2 months ago, about sort of the trend mill and this trend cycle that is creating constant social pressure on them. I think it is a dynamic where it is a fickle audience, and if you screw something up, you're going to get called on it.
You both talked about, I think, about screenshotting. The worst thing to happen is if one of your campaigns gets screenshot. Can you talk about what that means exactly? What that looks like?
It used to be the New York Times test, and now it's the screenshot test, right? So you'd always think about, do I want this to be a headline in the New York Times? Now you think about, do I want it screenshot and put on Reddit? And so it's same principle.
So what would be an embarrassing thing? What would be an embarrassing?
I think it would be a misstep. I think it would be one of those tone-deaf responses to someone's question. We have to be active in the DMs. We have to be active in the chat of the comments. There are things, though, that we take a lot of risk on. For example, rage bait. This is something that, I was not aware of until my really cool team told me that we should do this, or that we had done it. They didn't say we should do it because, to be clear, I wouldn't have approved it. And we did a piece of rage bait content, and I think, maybe 3 years ago, that would have been really awful. But what we did is we have a new prebiotic soda called Sunsip, and the person is like, I don't have any ice, what am I going to do? They put frozen vegetables in a glass and use that instead, and the comments went wild with rage, and you're wasting my time, and yet it was our most viral piece of content, over 4 billion views.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Joey, you work with some of the biggest companies in the world. Amazon, Apple?
Yeah, Apple,
Okay.
Walmart.
I mean, these aren't companies that are known for being necessarily lean and nimble. And they probably have huge legacy marketing operations. How are you able to work with them in that infrastructure, knowing the reality of today?
Yeah, I mean, I think the past few years has been interesting, certainly within tech companies. The tech session of 2022, if that's, are we still calling it that? Teams got really lean internally. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, as one example, has said he wanted to make Meta as lean as possible. I think there are questions about, have those companies gone too lean, right? Even in this constant pursuit, IBM recently removed 8,000 jobs with AI and then quickly had to hire back 8,000 different jobs to replace that. And so I think this question of how lean they are, our company embeds with those teams to create whatever solutions are needed at a particular time. And oftentimes in some of these big organizations, you have a team that is like struggling to accomplish what they need to because their team is too small. They may be funded, but not have the human hours and human power to be able to accomplish what they need to.
Do brand guidelines even matter anymore?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you could probably algorithmize brand guidelines. I do think it matters, like the consistency, especially when you're talking about organizations of the scale. I mean, recently we completed, it's ongoing, but work across Amazon's entire brand ecosystem, everything from AWS and Prime and all of these different things. And the issue is just you need to be able to be consistent out in the market. Does this thing need an independent logo? Does it allows people to understand how that they can meet you in the market and choose to purchase something from you or not. And so I do think they matter. I think maybe not the 400-page brand guidelines document of with an X through it or whatever it is. But I think that ability to be consistent across massive scale over time and moving at the speed that Charlotte is talking about is actually really important, if not more important. You're
dealing with basic neurology, right?
Yeah.
And those memory structures, and people don't want to have to think hard to understand what brand is this from. And the easier you make it for them, the more distinctive and memorable you become. So of course, say this and don't say that, that falls out when you're doing influencer work or short burn social content. But when you're showing up on a big billboard, make sure that your brand is recognizable. And so that's where...
Yeah, and if you do something that they like, you want to get the association to other products you're delivering or whatever it is.
Okay, remaining 30 seconds. In 5 years, marketing looks like what?
Oh, I think we have no idea. That's the best part of our jobs, right? I think we all thought it was going to be the metaverse, and people were buying real estate on billboards there. Now it's AI, and what's next? I think we have no idea, and our job is to just stay current.
I think it's probably 50% the same and 50% different. I think, Tyler Cohen has talked about the distribution of AI being reasonably slow, and so I think a lot will change and a lot will be the same.
I lied. One last thing. AI, a bigger or smaller factor in the future for us?
Bigger.
Okay.
Yeah.
On that note, Charlotte, Joey, thank you very much.
Thank
you so much.